The County Historical Society is so pleased to have one of its own today to tell us about Williamston in particular during the mid-1900s, and specifically about the civil rights marches that were going on in our country some 50 years ago. It's sort of a commemorative, you could say. And so we're so pleased to have with us today Styron Bonds. Welcome, Styron. Please tell us about yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I was born in Berkeley County, January 7, 1947. And my father's name is Styron Bond. My mother's name is Annie James Bond. Daddy being a Berkeley native, and Mama's from Martin County, area called Dardens, which is full of Indian history. Now over in Berkeley County, Daddy was related to Indians, white, black, alike. The Tuscarora Indians during that time were very active. We were aware of the Indian Woods area.
Yes.
So after I was born, Daddy lived on the family farm in Berkeley County for about a year. We call that over home. Okay, and that's where Grandmama had orchards, milk cows, watermelon patches, hens laying eggs, a pantry, everything. She didn't have to buy anything. She had a garden, mules, and you know what they have on farms, usually have on farms. And it was always interesting to me, but Daddy, after leaving the Army, he was a sergeant in World War II in charge of 9 men. And he fought on the front line. He was a Buffalo soldier, and he left Berkeley County in 1942. Came back in 1945. Married Mama, who was teaching in Smithfield. And she often talked about the Klan country. That's what she considered Smithfield, because on the billboards they had pictures of Klan, welcome to Klan country or something like that. So most of the time she was afraid in Smithfield, North Carolina. But she eventually came home and they got married. And then I was born in 1947. And of course, I didn't know it at the time, but I was born on the colored floor of the hospital. And it was later on when I realized that, of course, probably a long time after that. You know, you don't think about why. Well, of course, being a baby, you know you're not. But still, all the counties in the area had a floor for colored people. That's what we were known back then as colored people. And of course, as I began to read, I found out that there were 3 races of people: Caucasoid, Negroid, and Mongoloid. And everybody fits under those 3. So I began to wonder why color, especially when I looked at my birth certificate later on and various other documents. When I saw my daddy's and my mama's birth certificate, you know, I began to realize that we were considered colored, okay? And then I looked at some of Grandmama's documents and I found out that somebody tried to spell Creole and they misspelled it. And you know, Creole, you usually see that around Louisiana. And then I saw some more papers, somebody tried to spell mulatto, you know, because when you're mixed. Yeah, so I began to wonder, you know, why all these different titles and things. So as time went by, I started putting things together and realized that things were separate. And of course, people would get along in their neighborhoods, so to speak. And I noticed as I was growing up, Father eventually moved to Williamston because he wanted to open up a business. And his mother, Eva, helped him with the finances. So he built a store, a barber shop, and a beauty shop. And we lived in the back. As business got better, he put it upstairs. His brothers came over who were carpenters and friends of the family, and they built the second story with large rooms, knotty pine. I loved it. I loved the whole house. You know.
Smelled good, didn't it?
Oh yes, it was a nice house, and we were right next to E.J. Hayes. Every time the bell rung, I could go home and make it back before class started. And they allowed me to do that, you know, so things worked real well with where we lived, and the business and everything. It was a center of attraction, and everybody came there to get their hair cut and to buy groceries. Daddy let them have credit. And then Mama was teaching in Aurora, and she stayed away the whole week and came home on Friday. It was later on in her career that Mr. Honeyblue, known Martin County native, let her work in Hamilton. So she began to teach in Hamilton, North Carolina, and then later on she helped start Martin Technical Institute's library. And she became the librarian at Martin Tech.
And she was originally from Piney Woods, wasn't she, here in Martin?
Yes, and that's full of history. In fact, William Barber, who's in the news now a lot, president of the NAACP in North Carolina, is from Darge. His daddy was an activist, and he tried to help people as much as he could, and he did a great job in the Darge area. His daddy did, so I'm not surprised that William is in Raleigh trying to help the school system. And back during the Civil War, a great-great-grandfather of mine named Nizer James was an espionage agent for the federal troops. And when the federal troops took over Martin County, or they were here in Martin County, and the Confederate soldiers were in Washington County, he was caught, and they hung my great-great-grandfather for spying. He was a James, and of course that was close to Jamesville, and you know how these towns were named. Okay, so it wasn't hard to put that together. Okay.
All right, now you went to Hayes School.
Yes, I went to Hayes School, and the teachers were extraordinary. I was looking at some pictures the other day, and all the male teachers wore suits, and the pants had creases, and they wore ties every day. And the women were dressed up also, and there were no major problems. In fact, we thought we were the best. Nobody could tell us that E.J. Hayes wasn't an outstanding school. We thought that gym was the best gym in the state.
And you won many titles.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we won a lot of titles. And I had one principal during my schooling, 12 years at E.J. Hayes, that was Mr. Holmes. And he was an outstanding educator. Before him, it was Edgar James Hayes, who came from Plymouth. And he was also outstanding. In the early part of the schooling, the school was burned several times. And then in 1952, Mr. Holmes came, and he used to invite outstanding speakers to the school. One was Benjamin Mays, who taught Martin Luther King. It was always amazing how he would get these outstanding educators from other states to come and speak for graduation. The teachers were outstanding. Some that stood out were Mr. Richard Broadnax, who had so many duties. I wondered how he was paid. He was in charge of the buses. He was the commentator at the football games. He was in charge of graduation, and he taught mechanics how to rebuild lawnmowers. He had judging contests for livestock. And I'm leaving out a whole lot of, he came up with a motto for each graduation, and he would raise that motto up to above the stage with chains and all kind of devices that he made in his shop. In a Rosenwald school. And that was over, I don't really consider the main building a Rosenwald school, even though some people say it probably is. But there was another building on the right of that my father eventually bought and moved it across the street for a rental property. It had about
Was that a Rosenwald school, you think?
I think so, but it's not there. The sidewalks and everything is still over there.
You know, Hamilton has one. a
Yes,
Rosenwald
and this building resembled that. I had classes in it. They had hot belly stoves. I used to go out and get coal for that part.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you not coached by a Mr. Boone?
Yes, he came here from Rocky Mount. He taught in Blackstone, Virginia for a year. And then he came to our school. He went to North Carolina Central. And we lost a few games when he first came, but after that we started winning. My team went to Chapel Hill. We were district champs. We lost by a close margin in Chapel Hill that season, and I hated to leave the rest of the boys who were freshmen, sophomore, and juniors because they went on to higher aspirations.
Well, did you go, you graduated and went where to school?
I went to Elizabeth City State, in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and of course, the civil rights movement was going on there also. And I had just left Williamson where I was marching and participating. And when I went to Elizabeth City, a group of us went downtown to the laundromat and we were turned away. My cousins from Bertie County, friends from Bertie County, and all of them looked at me because they knew I was in this movement over here. And I said to myself, I'm not going to jail in a strange town. So I did something like this and we went back to campus.
Well, let me say this.
Yes.
Let me interrupt you because we're leaving out a big part here and we'll come back to that. But let me ask you one thing. You find your love. What is your wife's name?
Okay. Clementette. And we call her Clem.
Yes.
And I met her while we were going to these civil rights meetings down the hill, which has a distinction because that's one of our neighborhoods. People still refer to it as down the hill. And the only time I went down the hill before the movement was to take wood. My father had a wood business. We had several trucks and we sold wood. We had a wood yard and we were busy. I kept my friends working. We drove trucks and delivered wood to the houses of Williamson. $5 a load. Now you go to stores and just a bundle of wood costs $5. We had a dump truck for $20 a load, and like I said, we had a wood yard, and G&H Mill would give my father wood.
Yes.
It was like in a slab coming out from a chute, and Daddy would keep it clear. And then we would take the wood and use a saw and cut it up and sell it to people. So that's the only reason we were going down the hill during that time. But when the movement came, of course.
Do we want to go ahead and talk about the movement, or do you want to tell me about your personal family now?
Well, okay, a few more things about,
Or we can do it either way. Why don't you go ahead and go into the movement and we'll end up with your personal family.
All right, okay. The movement, we were on campus very busy because we were busy.
This is at Hayes.
Yeah, at Hayes. Hayes kept us busy. Football, basketball, studying, just the school atmosphere kept us busy. We enjoyed the blue and gold. We enjoyed being Tigers. Yeah. And like I say, those teachers were something. Mr. McDonald just died recently in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was one of the 8th grade teachers and an elementary principal, Mr. McDonald. He could outrun some of the boys that we thought were fast on our team. And he just died 2 weeks ago in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And we had so many people on that staff, like Carol Bartlett that came here as a music teacher. And she was in plays with Lena Horne before she came here. And everybody just had a good resume. Teachers like B.C. Brinkley.
Well, did the teachers know anything about this movement?
Yes, they did, because they came from a college atmosphere and some things were going on where they came from. So they were aware. And I remember in one incident that we had at my father's store where they marched from school. And my sister, who was mostly out front most of the time, leading the teenagers, was hurt by a police officer who touched her with a caliper, electrical.
And what was her name?
Styron Bonds. She's a teacher in Silver Springs, Maryland. And she doesn't want to retire. She loves teaching so much. And that's what was so outstanding about these students that participated in the movement. All of them are contributing to society. I'm thinking of a medical doctor right now that grew up on Warren Street, which we call Warren Court. Clarence Lloyd is a medical doctor in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he's a graduate of E.J. Hayes. Ronald Gaither is a medical doctor. His mother was that great English teacher that we had, that we called Mom Gaither. There's a dentist named Dennis Slade that went to Hayes. And all these lawyers. My best friend is an assistant DA in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He marched with me. We played football together.
Tell us about the march. Tell us how it got started and who was in it.
All right, okay. One day while getting ready for football practice, somebody said there's a meeting tonight, and they want the young people to go.
And this was back in
1963, during the summer. And of course, like I say, it was strange that we took time to go because we were so busy. My daddy had me busy. And of course, I was my own boss, but I knew what I had to do. I had a shoe shine stand in the barber shop. I had to keep up with the haircuts and the shave.
And the tickets.
Yeah, so Daddy could get 40% on Saturday night, while the three barbers got 60%. And then I had to keep the store. And of course, I was too young to work in the store, but the town didn't never say anything because they respected my father. I've seen the police stop outside the store, taking somebody to jail for something. And Daddy would go out and open the police car and take them out. And the policeman wouldn't say anything. Daddy said, I'll take care of it. And I was a boy, and I said, how did Daddy do that? No paperwork, no nothing. He would just take somebody out of the police car, and the policeman would just look at my dad and let it go. You know, and I thought that stood out. And I'm still living on my father's reputation right now.
Don't we though?
Yeah. And my son is living off mine. And the way he's living, somebody's gonna live off his.
Sure.
And that's
That's
the way.
roots. That's roots.
You can beat that.
Can't
And
beat
I
that.
tell you.
All right, now let's get back to that march.
That's right. That march, our first meeting was on Sycamore Street, which is now Martin Luther King. Which kind of stands out because in every town that was a fight to name a street after Martin Luther King.
Times have changed.
Martin County, it didn't take long for them to okay it. I don't know if it's because we didn't have no major businesses on Sycamore or what, but I think Martin County did it quicker than anybody else. But that church is still there, and I think it's called Bible Way. There was a Reverend Carter there. And we only met there one time. And then all the rest of the meetings were at Green Memorial, down the hill. That's where we would go. And that's where my wife and her friends were more sociable than I was. And they were going out. And there was a club down the hill. That's where they were. But as the movement started, they eventually went to the church too. And that's where I met Clem. Okay, and I can say that's why I have my three children, Styron, Tracy, and Brooke. And all of them are doing well. Martin County did a good job with my three children.
Well, you may have done a good job with them too.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's something to think about too. Now back to the march. Our first march was to Watts Theater.
Who was on that march?
Okay, Jackie, myself, my friends, John Howard, Charles Howard, Brenda Williams, Ralph Hargett, I mean, a lot of students from EJA joined in, and we marched down Sycamore, made a left on Main Street, and went to Watts Theater. And the manager named Noah came out and prevented us from going downstairs. We thought it was ridiculous to have a floor for color. I'm going to go on and call us color because that's what we were back then. In fact, I would be okay with being a Negro if it wasn't for that other M word. But that, you know, because Negro is a race.
That's right.
But it's disappeared. I've been black. I'm African American right now. Well, maybe black. But I've been 5 different things. And everybody else is still the same.
Yes, yes.
But back to the movies. I remember Cynthia Payton, the smartest student in my class, who's a Jehovah's Witness here and goes around trying to help the citizens of Williamston. She was the salutatorian in our senior class. She was the smartest one, Cynthia Payton. Her mother worked at the movies. They cleaned up. She lived to get almost 100, Miss Payton. She lived over there behind Chorus.
What happened when you all went there?
Okay, we were turned away. We were turned away, of course. They didn't let us in. We never got to go inside.
All right. So did you go back then?
Yeah, we went back. Before we did, there were 2 white teenagers that told my sister and I that we didn't have to do that. That respected him, whatever it was, which we didn't agree with because we knew all the white citizens didn't feel like these 2 white teenagers that told us we didn't have to do it. So when we went back to church, we had forgotten about that incident, but one of the girls, Brenda Williams, reminded the congregation that 2 white boys, 2 brothers, tried to keep us from marching by saying we didn't have to march. So after that, when we passed Sarah Small's house, that's when she said, these young people need some help. And that's when Sarah Small became a leader. And we didn't have many grown-ups helping us. And we understood that. In fact, we didn't really care because we somewhat knew the men would have been fired and probably arrested or hurt or something. So it was a youth movement. Even in Selma, Alabama and Mississippi, Martin Luther King was using children. He was using children. And we knew that that's what he had to do because we've been working and we were young and we were able to march and what have you. So we had some women, adult women that helped us. Maylu Mobley, Francis King, and of course Ella Mae Armour, who's over there across town now. Her husband was Bobby Armour, who had a store over there. And they rented 3 buses and took Williamstonians to the March on Washington. And that I missed out on. My sister Jackie went. But we thought football practice was more important. And of course, Herman Boone, we didn't want to miss a game. We didn't want to miss practice, so we didn't go. I missed out on the March on Washington because of football. And Jackie went, and of course, she was into that. We saw her singing in a magazine, and we enlarged the picture. Of course, you know, Golden Franks went. And like I say, Bobby Armour and Ella Mae paid for 3 buses with their own money. So people from Williamston could go to the March on Washington. Martin Luther King never came to Williamston, but he went to Edenton. And a lot of Williamston people went over there. I missed that. I didn't go to Edenton. There again, football, the store, the barbershop, the wood business kept me busy. But still, I ended up in jail. Because when we were...
Well, that was Golden Franks. Was he over here with you? He was from Edenton, I believe.
He was from Edenton, and he worked with the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He was a field representative who had been trained in nonviolence and all the other things that Martin Luther King wanted us to do. Nonviolence. He preached nonviolence. And we were somewhat, it wasn't all that hard to know how to kneel down and take a beating or what have you. Because a lot of times I was ready for a beating and I never was beaten.
All right, you went to the movie theater, and what was the next thing?
Okay, the next thing was the restaurants, the laundromats.
Which restaurant?
Okay, Griffin's Quick Lunch. Okay, that was next.
What happened there?
And this was kind of strange because Griffin's Quick Lunch was owned by black people from Windsor, North Carolina. And every now and then I would hear people talk about it. But of course, when you lease a place to somebody, that they can do what they want with it. So I couldn't see that family from Windsor coming over here saying, now, you all don't need this two places, one for color and one for white. And Griffin's Quick Lunch was different. We had to go in the front. In every other town that I knew of segregation, the blacks went in the back. Griffin's Quick Lunch, the whites went in the back. And the blacks went up front. And of course, it wasn't that fancy up front. You could see this and that. In the back, it was, better looking, air conditioning. It was kind of dingy up front. It was dingy. And that's where the colors had to go to the front. So my friends and I, Jackie, my sister, John Howard, John Small, Magella McIntyre, we decided to have a sit-in. And this was the first sit-in in Martin County. Those five, including myself, we went in Griffin's Quick Lunch. And those people were frightened inside. They picked up chairs and held them over our heads by the back of the chair. And of course, what's so amazing, we didn't budge. We didn't move. And some of them picked up ketchup bottles and held the bottles over our heads. And again, we didn't budge. And then the owner, well, the one who leased the place, there was two brothers, George Griffin and Harold Griffin, came out and said, don't hit them, don't hit them. That's what they want you to do. And I don't know if, I guess I can safely say Harold probably prevented us from being hit. But then again, maybe they were just trying to scare us. But we never got hit. So the police came and we were arrested. Jackie and I were in the police car by ourselves. And Jackie raised her age so she could be arrested. She was 15. She didn't have to go. She raised her age, and that's how Jackie was. Everybody that knew Jackie. What's the day, Friday? She's somewhere in class right now, probably trying to keep the people in Maryland straight. I went to her school one time.
All right, so they took you to jail.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the people that went to the jail frequently were surprised to see us because they knew we weren't criminals. They knew Daddy. They knew Mama. What are you all in here for? We tried to tell them, but they didn't understand.
Were there many people in jail?
About 3 or 4. And they were locked up a lot for being drunk or something. You know, no major crime. One was named Basehorn. That was his nickname. Another lady was named String Bean. That was her nickname. And these nicknames amaze me too sometimes.
Did you get out?
Well, after about 3 days, because, you know, we wanted to go to jail. That was like a notch on a gunfighter's gun. We wanted to go. We wanted to go to jail. And Jackie wanted to go. And of course, they were in a different cell. You know, the jail is no longer there.
I know.
Okay, I guess Williamson didn't want the stigma of having a jail. Still don't understand that. It probably costs a lot to take people back and forth to Bertie. But anyway, the jail is gone, and it was up high. The jail was up high. And it's something being in jail, seeing the family car go by. It was going, look, it was going down the hill. That's the only thing that, you know, I was doing okay until I saw the family car, the tail end, going down the hill. And I wanted to get out, but I knew we were in a struggle, so I laid on the cement floor. It was hot in there. Somebody said they cut the heat on one time. Not that time. I think it was just hot. In fact, I talked to a fellow the other day, and I told him I thought it was just hot. He said, no, they cut the heat on Styron. They cut the heat on. He was our quarterback. Maylou Marvin's son, Bill, who lives in a hospital now. He said, they cut the heat on. And I let it go. Maybe he was right. I do know he broke a window out with a broom handle so we could get more air, because we were like right here in jail, and there were some windows over there in the wall, and somehow he had a stick, broom or something. He broke a window out. But they bought us radios, transistor radios, our family, cakes and pies, and we had a so-called good time in jail, whatever that means. And then they realized jail is no good if you don't mind being there. It's like, was it a rabbit that said, whatever you do, don't throw me in the broadcast?
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm gonna make me a t-shirt with that on. Whatever you do, don't throw me in jail. No. But anyway, we didn't mind going to jail.
Aren't you got out though?
Yeah, we got out and did the same thing over and over again.
And what about the time you went to the laundromat?
Yeah, we went to the laundromat, and Jack and I did that on our own. Most of the time, you wanted to wait for your friends and everybody, and Golden Franks and everybody, but we got carried away and started doing things on our own. And that was great too, in a way. But most of the time, I always wanted to see somebody else. But Jackie was enough that day. And I said, sister, I call her sister. I said, sister, let's go to the laundromat, because the movement was dying down. And we went in there, and those women, those white women, got on the phone and called their husbands.
All right, now let me see.
Yeah.
Now you all could use the back of the laundromat.
Yeah, we could go to the back. The building is still there. It's in front of Brown and County. It was on the side of Whitley Auto. Yeah, but you can see the plumbing. It was real nasty back there. The washer and dryers were not working right, and it was not
and so
air
the front was where the
front was okay. It was nice up front. Air conditioning, carpet. It was pretty up front to be a laundromat. So we didn't see the need of having a place in the back there, and we really didn't want to wash, tell you the truth. We had a washing machine at home, but somebody had to make a move, you know, so we were keeping the movement going. Just like we didn't want to go to the movies that night.
Yeah, but anyway, you went to the laundromat, and what happened there?
Yeah, we went to the laundromat, and 3 or 4 white men came up there to fight. Okay, and we never got touched, of course, because so much was going on. One of our friends named Ben Scott came by, who went to Connecticut a lot, and he started a fight himself trying to help Jack and I. But we didn't really want no help. But it was appreciated. He came there and started trying to fight like Muhammad Ali or somebody, pecking at those men, you know, and being fancy with his footsteps and stuff. And he hit 1 or 2 of them in the face. It was something to see. Ben Scott. It's amazing. A guy that went to Hayes a little bit, that quit, and was going back and forth to Stamford, Connecticut. And by that time, he ran to the bus station and left. They never caught him.
Well, did somebody pull a gun on you?
Yeah, during that time, one of the cooks at Griffin's Quick Lunch looked over and saw what was going on, and he came over there with a gun and pulled it on Jack and I. No need of running. And Jackie didn't run, so I stayed there. And then 3 white boys came up and tore a white only sign down that was up there in stone, looked like to me. I didn't think it could be torn down. White only. And they put it in my truck. And when the police came, they told the police that I tore the sign down, which I should have, but I didn't think of tearing no sign down. So I was arrested for trespassing and destroying property. And that's when I saw my first black lawyer. He came from Eventon. Tippett. Last name Tippett. I don't know why. happened, we had never seen a black lawyer before. And here he comes, and he tried his best, but we were found guilty. Jackie, trespassing, I mean, and of course we didn't mind. We didn't know that something like that could be on your record for the rest of your life. But it never hurt us, you know, because people had some common sense. And it never hurt us anywhere we went. And I looked for it at the courthouse, and I found it. It's there, but it never hurt us. And I saw where some people had it erased. We never tried to get it erased. In fact, like I told you, we enjoyed it.
Well, did I understand that you all took out a warrant?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, okay. After we left jail and court for trespassing and destroying property, I looked at Sister one day and I said, Sister, let's get a warrant out on that man for pulling that gun on us. She said, okay. And I didn't think of it, but nobody got warrants on white people. You know, just like the black policemen couldn't arrest white people. But we didn't even think of that because we thought things were halfway righteous. So we went to Mr. Tetterton. He was the magistrate. And he looked at us with a smile or something, you know, with a sarcastic like when he found out we were going to get a warrant. And he gave us one. He gave us a warrant. And later on I found out that his wife was the photographer where we took all those
Royal Studio.
pretty pictures. When we went up there, that lady took some. I looked at some of them last night. She took some nice pictures of my family. That lady, and I saw her place of business not too long ago. The Royal Studio is still on the door, even though they don't use it, you know. But people couldn't wait for that trial. When they found out that Jackie and I got a warrant out on this man. And the courthouse was separate but equal. I guess you can use that term. But the whites were on one side, I think they were over here, and the blacks were on the other side. And in every town in the South, if the whites didn't have a seat, they could go on the black side and sit down. If the blacks needed a seat, they couldn't go on the white side. And I think they had a balcony in the courthouse too. I don't remember them using the balcony. But that day the court was full. And not liking crowds, I was glad when it was over. But I had to go to the witness stand. Jackie had to go. She couldn't wait to get up there. And she got there talking and talking. And I didn't say nothing extra when they asked me, but she had to put extra things in it and all, you know. And then Gerganus, the prosecutor,
Edgar.
yeah, with his red hair. I never will forget it. And of course the judge was an old-looking man. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but he looked just like a judge is supposed to look. And Gerganus said, Jackie, is this the gun that this man pulled on you and your brother? And Jackie jumped up. That's it. And Gerganus said, Your Honor, this is a toy. And the black people were so sad. And the white people rejoiced. It was something, it was so dramatic, you know, and you can tell I somewhat enjoyed telling it. But it took all of that. And it could have been a real gun. I still think it's a possibility. And then again, if it was a toy, it's still against the law. Gerganus made a screwdriver come out of the barrel. Yeah, it was a screwdriver. Yeah, he made a screwdriver come out of the barrel to prove to the judge that it was a toy. So the prosecutor looked at Jack and said, Jack, now that you know you were wrong, are you going to continue to be involved in this movement? And she said, as soon as I leave here. And the people forgot what they were doing and just were amazed at this little 15-year-old girl. I say little, even though you can't call Jackie little even back then, because she was president of the student body. She was the drum majorette. She was Miss Debutante. and I'm leaving out some things. Cheerleading. She was a leader. She did her classwork. She was smart.
You, Styron, are a leader too.
Yes,
You-
and I somewhat, I was considered myself being around good people, and that helps too. As I look at my daddy and Jackie and my friends that I played football with, it seemed like they kind of kept me going. Even though it's still, you got to give yourself some credit too, because I don't think I would want my children to do what we did.
Do you think the movement helped?
Yes, I do, because when you look at the barriers that existed, like being on a special floor in the hospital, say people today in an integrated society don't know about those barriers, and then you look into one ads and you see help wanted, white preferred, and rooms to rent, white preferred. See, you don't see that anymore. And integration was not just going to school with somebody, because we were happy at Hades. We didn't want to go nowhere else. But then if you find out the buses that they don't want over at Greenway, then you're going to get them. And the books that they don't want, you're going to get those. And maybe the teachers, they say, weren't making as much. Those things like that. And then being thought of as second class.
That's right. Makes you feel second
Yeah,
class, and
so
that's not right.
every now and then I'll hear people say we were better off than had been for this and that, but we needed that. Mom and Dad, they called themselves going on a vacation. Black people didn't know what a vacation was. They didn't know what insurance was. Didn't nobody get no insurance. Didn't nobody have nothing that helped them out. In fact, Mom and Daddy had to sleep in the car when they went to Miami, Florida. 54 Mercury. Brand new, because Daddy, he had it going on. Daddy had a new 54 Mercury, and they went to Miami, and they were so tired when they got back. Grandmama came over here, just 5 miles across the river in front of Styron Church. That's what we call over home. That's where the family cemetery is. And Grandmama came over here and stayed with us while Mom and Daddy went on their so-called vacation. You couldn't stay in no motel, nowhere. That's another thing. So that's why the movement was very important. And just think, I was thinking about the other day, these things that we fought for. I mean, I just go back and forth, and I have peace of mind, but there's no movie. There's no swimming pool. I saw them cover that up before we even got a chance to. I guess that would have been called a swim in, since everything, But before we even got there, I saw the cement trucks. All you got to do is just ride around town and you can see what's going on. And I saw all these cement trucks. And they filled that place in, right over there, a big pool. And every time I go by there, I'm hoping to see the parking lot full, so I can say, well, they needed a parking lot. But it was something to see. That big pool over there was filled in. And then I was at the stoplight, I think race every day, really. I can't get it out of, in a good way, whatever that means. I was at the stoplight down there by the Armory. And I saw they were filling in the pool over there at the Breezewood.
And you were under.
And I was the only one thinking like this. But see, they didn't want it no more. Nobody uses the thing. And then the business is probably not that good. So everything has changed. And then after they filled it in, I said, well, I won't be looking over there no more. And I can still see a blue piece. When I go back in there, I still see part of the pool. But these things linger with people my age.
Of course they do.
And I can't get it. So these young people just don't understand. Or the old people that say we were better off. But there's no way we could be better off, because when we went to play football, Mr. Boone didn't know where to stop so we could get some food. He had to be a test. He had to have a test first and go to the place and see if we could go in. A lot of times he would come back. A lot of times he would come back to the bus and say, well, we got to go. So we would keep on the Chapel Hill. In fact, we spent the night at North Carolina Central, the black school, because we couldn't stay nowhere else. And of course that worked okay. You know, they fed us and everything. And we played that championship game in Chapel Hill. And then there was another incident where I was riding through town in my daddy's truck, and I saw a black man being chased by a white mob. And I decided I would have to help him. And I rolled my daddy's glass down because I didn't want to get broken because they were throwing bricks. And there was nobody out that night but that mob, that black man, and myself. I was coming up the hill. And I got there by the dime store. I made a left and got to the RC and stopped the truck and made him get in the truck. And I had to, hurry up! I had to make him get in the truck, and I caught a brick right there. And then I sped through town, stop signs, stop lights, and took him where I thought he lived. And made him get out. Get out! And then I went home in a 51 Chevrolet truck. And I got out, the truck was still rolling when I got home. I knew it was stopped when it hit a bush or something. And I ran in the house and went to bed. There were so many moments like that. The time when I Beverly Lake came to Williamson. And Charles Howard, whose mama was a maid, all the black women worked in somebody's house. They had a job. They couldn't do anything else. I mean, when there was a first black to work in the bank, everybody would get on the phone and say, there's a black person working in the bank. You know, it was strange to see a black person. Yeah, it was strange to see a black person working somewhere. So how can somebody say the movement didn't work? You know, and all over town, the fire department, when they got that outstanding black person, I can't even think of his name, that worked with the fire department so long. And then every time there was a mail carrier that was black, everybody would say, that's the first black mail carrier. And they would tell people about it. Now it's routine. It's routine. Yeah, blacks are everywhere, but it was just whites everywhere. And then all the streets in our neighborhoods were dirt, bumpy. And you go in the white section, the streets were paved. So that was noticed. And the movement was very important.
That's good, and we've made a lot of changes and a lot of things have improved. Of course, there's still room for improvement.
Oh, sure, there's a lot of room for
and there's still discrimination, but you ended up teaching school in Bertie County.
Yes.
And how many years?
I taught, they gave me credit for my sick leave, 31 years, and then I stayed out and went back for 3 more years. So I worked in Bertie County for 33 years.
And you were a history teacher?
History teacher, and everybody knew about the incidents over here, so
yes.
They knew how I was going to teach, you know, history by blending it in and
yes.
telling everything.
And you got married, and you have a fine wife and 3 children. What is it that your children are doing now?
Okay, Trey is an engineer with Lockheed Martin, and he's in surveillance. Tracy's a computer technology person. And Brooke works at a bank. She has a position at the main headquarters of a bank in Greensboro.
Okay.
And all of them went to A&T University.
Yes.
And all of them are married now. They'll be home this weekend. One of their friends is getting married. But outstanding. I never had no problems with them. They participated in the Martin County schools. And received many honors and everything, and of course I told them stories, and that's why Tracy's in charge of homecoming activities and has a parade here in September.
Now you all have a large homecoming every year. How many folks do you usually?
Oh, it's tremendous because every night after graduation at E.J. Hayes, the bus station will be packed because people would be going up north to find a job. And after graduation, nobody stayed here. And since I stayed in Williamson because I always had something to do. But my friends were gone. It's just like, I often think, what would Williamson be like if all those doctors that went to E.J. Hayes were still around, and the lawyers and the prosecutors and the dentists and all professions were here. one boy from down the hill named Jody Smith that was one of those first 12 to go to Greenway, who ended up being the most outstanding student. His brother is an oceanographer. And before he went to Greenway, his brother and sister were the top students at EJA. But when he went over here, he became the top student. And they did away with the honor.
Valedictorian.
Yeah, they did away with the valedictorian. And I think they might have it back, I don't know, but during that time, they didn't want that to happen again. And I thought it was extraordinary that that student from down the hill, Jody Smith, would go over there and outdo everybody in those situations. And do the things that they did in order to integrate the schools. And of course, when I passed E.J. Hayes, I consider that building the best looking building in town. Every time, it's amazing to me that nothing is going on in that building.
They've restored it beautifully.
Yeah, it looks good.
The Alumni Association.
Yeah, they're doing a great job, but it's amazing that it was just put off to pasture. You know, like it was, because in every town that was done when integration came. If anything was said, that might be part of it about integration. They closed the high school down and made it an elementary school.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the buildings look. In the Hosky, P.S. Jones, all of those schools named after black principals. E.J. Hayes, C.S. Brown, R.L. Van. You could tell, you know, that they were named after the first principal. And I passed by E.J. Hayes, and it has a stance or something, like it's not going to be moved. You know, it's so strong looking. And if you go to Piggly Wiggly, you look over there, and it's the best looking building in town.
I think you've got a few emotional attachments there, but it certainly is.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing that that building, and I was taught in every room. And all those other people that left town and doing great things in their communities come back, and I'm sure they feel the same way.
Styron, this has been a marvelous experience. You've shared so much of yourself and the experiences of the years, and we do appreciate it so much. The Middle East may be having its revolutions now, but we had ours 50 years ago. And we are very glad that we can see change and progress coming along. We still have continued hope that it can be even better balanced with time, and that we can have hope and love for everyone. And we do thank you so much for sharing this with us.
I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Hey, why don't you wave?
Wait, I got to give you something. Don't leave yet.
Okay.
Wave.